hopefully they'll just join as as we're talking here. So I'm Lisa Twilley. I'm the director of the Women's Business Center at Maryland Capital Enterprises. Thank you all for joining us today. Just to give you a little bit of background about Maryland Capital Enterprises and what we do, we assist entrepreneurs that are getting started in business. We do business consulting, marketing consulting, workshops such as this, micro and small business loans. All of our services are free. So if anybody needs any assistance, please reach out. I'm going to put our new website that we have for the Women's Business Center. We're excited about that. I'm going to put that in the chat, and I'll put my contact information in the chat. Also, at the end, if you guys wouldn't mind filling out an evaluation, we would really appreciate it. That does help us get future grant money. So I have Kathy Kiernan here today, who is the owner of Open to the Possible Coaching and Consulting. And we're really excited. I've been to several of Kathy's workshops before, different places, and I was like, Kathy, please come help us. So we're really, really excited to have her here today. So Kathy, take it away.
All right, great. Thanks, Lisa. I'm happy to be here with all of you today, and I'm excited that I even know some of you. So the goal, our goal today is to spend some time talking about you and your money, specifically during COVID. And we were talking before we got started about how changes that occur in life can often create changes in one area of our life, often create changes in other areas of our life. So when we change jobs, it changes our relationship to our money. When we transition perhaps to retirement or maybe into part-time work, it changes our relationship to our money, and perhaps even how we feel about it and how we move forward. So we're gonna focus on you and your money during COVID, how the past year perhaps has changed your relationship. And we're also going to talk about some tools and tips to make you have or help you have a better relationship with your money. I do need to, my lawyers and my accountants say that I must put this disclaimer in that I am not a magician. I'm not a tax attorney. I'm not a CPA. I'm not even an accountant, even though I have an MBA and I understand a whole lot of that. And the reason that I say that to you is that what we talk about today, we're going to come up with some ideas. We're going to come up with some perhaps new thoughts. We're going to come up with some suggestions of tools, tips, tricks that you can use to either change your relationship with money or improve improve your relationship with your money. Nothing that I say is a silver bullet. There's no magic slide in here that's going to give you all the answers that's going to make your 401k miraculously double in size or to double your paycheck either, but it will definitely give you some awareness. And we're only going to spend 50 minutes together, so we don't have a whole lot of time. But what I will say to all of you is congratulations for being here and spending some time actually focusing on your money and your relationship to it and how you think and feel and act about it. I will tell you that when it comes to money, I'm a pretty regular person. I've had almost every money issue that most people have, right? I had credit card debt that I wasn't quite sure how I was going to get out of. I had school loan debt that took quite a bit of while to take care of. I early on in my career, I would run out of money 2 days before my paycheck would arrive in check form. Remember back in those days when you didn't even get access to your money for a couple of days. After that, I've made numerous career transitions and I've taken sabbaticals as well. So I have experience with many different money issues. And I also have a passion for talking to people and helping them work through some things. So we're going to start small because we know that during this last year, we're all about up to here with transition, change, surprises, and we are going to start really small today and build a nice foundation. And to do so, we're going to start with a poll question. And while I'm explaining the poll question, Marvin's going to bring it up on the screen. But I want to know, on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being very good, how well are you managing your money? How well do you think that you are managing your money? And let's see if...
It's saying that I'm logged in from another device.
Okay, so are you unable to do it?
It's not letting me do it.
Okay, so why don't you just go on the chat and tell me 1 through 5 where you think you are. 1 is you're not very good. 3 is you're probably average. 4 is above average. 5 is you're doing a really great job of managing your money. Okay, great. Thanks, Donna. Jane, thank you. So we promise, yeah, 2, 3. Looks like we have the full spectrum of numbers 2 through 5. Awesome. Okay, good. That is really helpful as we move forward. And this is a tool that I use in coaching all the time, of 1 to 5 scale when we're working on issues, or it is a way that we can measure ourselves. So you might want to ask yourself this question each month. Maybe on the 12th of the month, how am I doing with my money? And tracking that to see, it's one way that you could take a pulse of how you are actually doing with your money. Thank you for answering that. Okay, so let's realize that money can't buy happiness. We hear all the time about rich and famous people who have more money than we can even think about, that have all types of problems in their life, ranging from relationship issues to addictions to, problems showing up and all kinds of things. So what I know is that money hasn't necessarily made me happier. What money has done is money gives me choice to make decisions about where I want to go and what I want to do and what kind of house I want to live in and what kind of car I want to drive, and if and where do I want to go on vacation, and what kind of clothes I wear, and how do I show my philanthropic desires, right? Those are some of the choices that money gives me. I will also say that money can make life easier, as we know. It can be a big stressor for many of us. And when we begin to have a better relationship with money, it can really help lower our stress relative to it. And then money also, as we know, can buy us power, and not just power in I can buy people off, but power in that it can potentially open some doors. It could potentially enable me to go back to school, or it can enable me to really be of help in my community in other ways. So I think that it's important that we realize that this is not about happiness. This is really about having nice choice. And when I think of money people, I think of Suze Orman, the money guru, who says the true empowerment is when you really do have control over how you think, feel, and act with your money. So this is about you making your own choices, right? She talks about how you think, how you feel, and how you act with your money. That is where true empowerment comes from. And so with respect to empowerment and the choices that we're able to make, let's dive a little deeper into our goals for today. Okay, so first and foremost, we are going to begin to understand our issues around money, or our beliefs around money. For most of us, our beliefs and thoughts about money came from our family of origin, right? Most likely you handle money similarly to how your parents handled money, or one parent or the other. Right? So your mother might have been a spendthrift and your father may have just spent money wildly, and you take after both of them in some way, or you take after your mother and squirrel money away and have a really nice nest egg, or money burns a hole in your pocket like your dad, and here you are today. Right? So we inherit these habits, and both good and bad habits. And perhaps we didn't learn anything much about money from our family of origin. Perhaps they didn't teach us about how money works, about the time value of money, about how if you put money away and invest it, that 20 years from now, it'll be a significantly larger sum than it is today. So the reason that we think about where our money issues came from is really just from an awareness standpoint, right? And it's important that we not blame anyone, but that we recognize where our issues came from. I grew up in a very traditional household. My dad worked full-time. He was an engineer and made a decent living. My mom was mostly a stay-at-home mom. She worked some odd jobs from time to time, and I think it was just a way for her to get out of the house and have some time being with other adults, as opposed to being at home raising 4 children. So I came from a very traditional household, and I learned from both parents in terms of my money, and I learned how to be a really good spender, and I love spending money. And I also learned how to save, and I really appreciate the savings. It reminds me, whenever I think about saving, I remember I was about 8 years old, and I received $25 for, it was some event, some birthday or some other event, and I had $25, and we had a yard sale in our neighborhood, and I went to, and they were one of the girls in the neighborhood was selling a whole bunch of Barbie clothes, and I was 8 years old, and I was totally into Barbie, and I so wanted those Barbie clothes. And my mom said I could have them if I would take the money out of my account. I don't know, it was like $10 or something. And I couldn't do it because I had put that money away to save. I'm not quite sure what I was saving the money for, but I think about that, and it reminds me of how part of my savings MO started way back when I was 8 years old. So how is our understanding of money, how has that changed in the past year? How do we think about it now that we're in the midst of COVID and we are 12 months past it and probably going to continue to be in it for quite a while longer? Some people were able to save a lot of money during the past year because they weren't spending it traveling and eating out and all the things that we used to do back in the good old days. And then some people ended up having to spend a lot more money or perhaps didn't make as much money. So our thoughts about money have probably changed quite a bit in the past year. Today, we're going to also take a step, a small step, in the right direction relative to our plan to move forward. We're going to start thinking about how we can have a more positive relationship with money, and we are going to think about where we want to be 5 years from now. And it's like anything. It's like our goals at work. It's like our goals with our education. It's like our goals with our children. If we make goals and we pay attention to them on a regular basis, and we perhaps modify them from time to time when they need to be modified, there's a much better chance we're going to hit our goals if we actually know which direction we're heading in and where we are going to go. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about the emotions of money, which, you know, money evokes a whole bunch of emotions in people. I'm going to ask you to chat and tell me in a word or two some of the emotions that come up for you with respect to money. You just do that. And you can send it directly to me. I won't call you out, or you can send it to everyone. But this is to help you become aware of how you're thinking about it. Fear, anxiety, panic. Okay. Any others? One or two words. Excitement. Okay. Very good. Okay, so penny wise and dollar foolish, right? Okay, right. So the whole gamut of emotions, and I suspect if we spent a little more time on this, or you spent some time this weekend thinking about this, you might even come up with a whole more list of. And different emotions might come up as we continue to talk about our money and our relationship to money. Okay. I've been doing quite a number of these sessions about money. People really like them. And I think that people like the thought of working on their money, but I'm not quite sure that everyone really wants to be working on their money. But I was working with a group, and a woman said that when she was growing up, that in her family, it was bad to want to make a lot of money because rich people were they just weren't the kind of people. They weren't necessarily good people, and they were greedy. And so she felt ashamed when she thought about money or thought about making money, which was really interesting, right? To think about our family of origin and where our thoughts about money actually come from. I read an interesting article back in the archives from a number of years ago in a Real Simple magazine that talked about why we are not financially savvy, or as financially savvy as we could be. And this article was specifically written about women, but I have to tell you that I think is quite appropriate for many of us, men and women, when we think about why perhaps we're not as financially savvy as we would like to be. And one of them is our lack of confidence around money. Again, if your parents didn't teach you about how money works, or how to set a budget, or how to save, or how to even think about money, then you may really lack confidence in it. And by the time we get to our age, people make the assumption that we should know. We should know about money. If we have taken accounting classes and finance classes and econ classes, that we should know about money and how it works. And we should be smarter about it. So we're afraid to ask people for help with respect to money. We also sweat the small stuff. Sometimes, like someone was saying, that penny wise and pound foolish, right? That we sometimes sweat the small stuff and kind of take our eye on the big picture, and we worry often about the small stuff, perhaps at the sake of actually doing what we really should be focusing on. Another thing we do sometimes is we wait for someone else to solve our problem. And I think that is really interesting. And I think depending on if you are in a relationship, chances are that one person in the household takes care of that money, and the other person may or may not have any understanding of what goes on money-wise in the house. So if you are not the person that handles the money, then you might not be as financially savvy as you would like to be, because you're not aware of it. You're not looking at it every day. You're not paying attention to how much the electric bill is, or the food bill, or how much you spent on vacation the last time that you went, right? We're not focused on goals. And again, there's an adage in business that people focus on the things that we measure. And so if we are measuring our money, and we're thinking about where we are and where we want to go, then there's a greater chance that we're going to get there. So before we do our next exercise, I'm going to take you through a quick centering exercise. And some of you have been through this with me on other webcasts that we've done, but I'm just going to take a couple of seconds, 20 seconds. And I just want you to sit upright or stand upright, however you are. I want you to take everything out of your hands. You can take your glasses off, or soften your eyes, excuse me, or gently close them. Take a nice deep inhale through your nose, and then exhale through your mouth. Just give yourself a chance to relax into this space and relax into this moment. Take a nice deep inhale and exhale. And just know that no one is watching you here. So just get comfortable with yourself. And on your next inhale, raise your shoulders to your ears. Nice big inhale. Scrunch those shoulders up, and then exhale. And we'll do one more nice inhale through the nose. And exhale. Just bring yourself back to this space. Thanks for appeasing me here. I have to tell you that the centering always helps, whether I'm a participant or I'm a speaker. So let's get into the exercise. What I'd like you to do on your computer, on a piece of paper, on a notepad, I'd like you to make a list of the things that cause you concern about your money. I'm going to set my timer for 3 minutes here. Make a list. Fears, concerns, questions. Here are a list of questions that you could answer to help you come up with what keeps you up at night. What are your areas of concern? Where could improvements be made? What would you like to change? 2.5 minutes. One minute left. Fifteen seconds. Okay. Excellent. Great. So if you are comfortable, you can put in the chat. You can send it just to me if you want, or you don't have to. But I'm curious as to what your area of concern or concerns might be. Sometimes it's helpful to know if there's something specific. I have a list of various items. Many of them are from personal experience. So I'll go over that list, but just wanted to see if there's anything specifically that you would like from a focus standpoint, and I can speak to it if you're willing to share. Yeah, not enough money to save, not knowing where it all goes, funding retirement and college and all the things that we have to do, no matter how old your children are, and then grandchildren come along. When can I retire? Right? Building up everyday savings. Spend too much and I don't. Healthcare costs. Yeah, I hear you. The number one, what I have heard is that there's not enough. It always feels, and understanding, yes, thank you, understanding stocks and investment, and potentially creating some part-time income as we go through transitions. Okay, super. Not having enough is a big one for most people. And then understanding where our money goes and what we can actually do about it. Most of our worry about money is future worry, right? It may not be money that's going on right here, right now. For me, it is about having different spending habits than my husband. It is about worrying about healthcare costs, which is such a huge cost as we get older in this country in a way that is very different than in other places. Yeah, thinking about, and how much is enough? And I'm not even sure that I know what that answer is for me personally, but I still grapple with it. So what I do know is that, so with your list, I'd like you to put a star or to circle the one area that you want to think about as we go through the next exercise, which we'll do in a couple of minutes. But just pick one that you feel like is either the easiest one to work on, or the one that gives you the most headaches, or just the one that feels right, and select one. Okay, just put a little star next to it. And these are exercises that you can do by yourself, with your significant other, with your entire family, with your parents, right? With your kids, these exercises. Here is what I have learned. It took me a long time to learn this, but it is one of the things that has made a big difference in my life, is that awareness leads to conscious choice. And once I'm aware of how I think and feel about money, and once I'm aware of what kind of goals I might want to have, and once I'm aware of what keeps me up at night, I can begin to make conscious choice about whether or not I want to do something about it. And like I tell all of my coaching clients, you don't have to work on this if you don't want to. If this causes you too much anxiety and you'd rather have your spouse deal with it, and you're confident that they're going to do a good job of it, then, move on and focus on something else, right? So the choice is, we can decide to move forward and do this work, or we can decide not to. But once we are aware of what's going on, we have conscious choice. And to me, that is empowering in a way that has really changed my life. So some of you might have heard this story, but I know this woman who's a famous author, and she has numerous books under her belt. I don't know her personally, but I've followed her for probably at least the last 10 or so years. I've read much of what she's written. Famous author, written a lot of books. Her husband is a pastor. She's been very successful, and has a number of children, adopted a number of kids. And one day, about a year ago, her, for whatever reason, I never got the lowdown, but they're going to get divorced. And what happened was, she was never in charge of her own money. She didn't know her banker. She didn't know how much money was in the accounts. She didn't deal with the taxes. She never visited her accountant. She was basically ignorant of everything that was going on with respect to her money. And I'm telling you this story, which she has publicly spoken about, how that awareness led her to completely change how she is now dealing with her money, and also how she's talking to other people about how they're dealing with money. If we don't know what's going on with our money, then most likely we're going to have anxiety about it. So just like when we set goals, just like when we are on a path towards success, we want to create awareness. The thing that has been the biggest difference maker for me and my money has been creating a measurement tool. And I can hear all of you like silently being like, oh my God, Kathy, you're going to ask me to make a spreadsheet? No, I'm not even going to ask you to make a spreadsheet, because I'm going to send you this template when we are done, or Lisa's going to send you this template. And here is what I learned about my own relationship with money was that I knew how much I made because, you know, I got a statement at the end of the year and I knew how much I made because I saw the money come in. I knew how much I was spending because I was paying the credit card bills and things along those lines, you know, had some idea of what was going on. But I was getting ready to make a transition in my life and I felt like I really needed to know, not just kind of sort of know where the money went, but really know. Like, am I spending $500 a month on food or are we spending $1,000 a month on food? That's a big difference maker. What I found out was the two of us are spending about $750 a month on food. That is a big number, right? When you think about it over a year, right? So this spreadsheet, hopefully you can see it. Really easy peasy, simple. Big categories across the top. You would change it based on, you know, maybe you don't have a mortgage anymore, or maybe you're paying rent instead, or maybe you've paid off your car so you don't have a car payment, right? Things like that. Maybe you're not putting anything in the savings. Maybe you would not have a miscellaneous category. Miscellaneous categories are never good, right? Because that's just like money that we like light on fire and have no idea where it actually goes. Friends, let me tell you, this spreadsheet was a game changer for me because it led to awareness, which leads to conscious choice, right? And some of these categories, you don't have a lot of control over, right? Your mortgage is what your mortgage is. Your taxes are what your taxes are. Your car payment is what it probably is. That doesn't mean that you don't have some options, because you do. But in the general scheme of things, those numbers are pretty set, right? But where you do have options is, you know, how much money are you spending on clothes and books and music and subscriptions and travel and miscellaneous and eating out. Oh my gosh, eating out. We used to do date night once a week. And we went to the local steakhouse and we'd spend, you know, $50 a week. It was just $2,500 a year we were spending at the steakhouse, which when I think about $50 a week, it doesn't sound like that much money until I think about $2,500 a year. $2,500 a year is a lot of money. I mean, you could do a vacation on that, right? So what it did was it led to making conscious choice about where we could tweak the numbers. And it also made me look at things like, if my monthly goal is $3,600 and my actual is above $3,900, then somewhere along the lines, that math is not going to continue to work, right? It's not sustainable. So you don't have to use a spreadsheet. You might be able to do this based on just what you know and just looking at your bank statements and credit cards. At the bottom of the spreadsheet, I have an area where I would actually go through and I'd look at my bank statements and my credit cards and I'd actually add it up. It takes 20 minutes a month. Now that I've got it down, 20 minutes a month for me to be crystal clear on how much money I was spending. I set a budget and I work in that budget and I can see the trends and I can see where I'm going. Unbelievably helpful. I'm going to take just a breath here and see if anyone has any specific questions before I move on into some stats. Okay, all right. And most of these you probably know, right? About the percentage of people living paycheck to paycheck, and these are old numbers. So these numbers might be even worse for you today or different for you today, given COVID and given what has changed. Maybe you're not making as much money, or what we do know is that the cost of a lot of things are really increasing. If you're doing anything with respect to home upgrades, fixing a bathroom or painting walls or buying new furniture, buying appliances, all those costs have increased significantly, right? As has costs for food and other basic items. All of those costs have increased over the past 12 months. And we don't always notice things that we just kind of repeatedly do until we take a look back and see what has actually happened. Having an emergency fund is a big stickler of mine. We never do know what's going to happen. So having a reserve or an emergency fund, I think, is imperative for all of us, regardless of how much money we might have in our retirement account. Right. And the average credit card debt is $6,400, which is about $13,000 per household, which is a pretty large number. And if you have ever been in credit card debt, like I was at one point in time, you know that the penalties and the interest and the fees that get tacked on top make it much more hard to pay off the balance because you're getting slapped with these ridiculous fees.
Kathy?
Yes.
I just wanted to ask you, when you say about the emergency fund, how much do you recommend people have for that?
Right. Yeah,
Have set aside for that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would suggest my magic number is 6 months of living expenses. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if your monthly spend is $3,600, then that would be something like $20,000. Okay, which is a lot of money. It sounds unattainable, but start somewhere. Maybe make a goal of having, 6 weeks or 3 months worth of money set aside.
Okay.
Because hopefully we'll never deal with another year like we had last year. However, things happen. We get sick, we break a leg, the kids need something, we get an offender bender, we have a deductible, right? Some of those, like, oh gosh, I didn't realize or know that those kinds of things were going to come along. I hadn't planned for them. So good question. Thanks for asking that, Lisa. Mm-hmm. So what we want to do is we want to make more and we want to spend less. So I'm just going to take just a minute here and talk about doing both of those things. One of the ways that we can increase our income, as we know, is we can ask for a raise. Not always successful, but it's certainly something that we can do. I have a whole other presentation that I do on these kinds of conversations around our professionalism, but we could ask for a raise. We could go and get another job. We could get a new job or a part-time job. We could sell some of our stuff, right? Perhaps we could be lucky that maybe in our household that there are others that are contributing as well that could raise the income stream, your significant other, maybe even some of the kids or others that may potentially live in your house. So that list is not as long as we would like it to be. I think when we think about it, the reducing expenses is a much greater category that we can really get rid of our debt and pay off our credit cards. That Dave Ramsey and many others talk about the snowball method of paying off debt, specifically credit cards. So let's say that you have several different credit cards that you have balances on. You put them on a sheet. You start with the smallest one, and on all the others, you pay the minimum balance. But on the smallest one, you pay much more than the minimum balance. And your goal is to get rid of that smallest credit card bill as quickly as possible. And what happens is a couple things. One is it will get rid of that quickly because you're focused on it. You'll have success, easy success, quick success, which will spur you on to want to tackle the next credit card bill in the pile. And it also keeps you focused on one thing at a time. I really like, check Dave Ramsey and Snowball Method. Cut down on groceries, right? There's a lot of opportunity, I think, in that. Reviewing all of our bills, our electric bill, how much we're paying for cable. I had a situation with a subscription that I was paying for music. And it seemed like every year they were upping the cost of it, and I was getting reduced services, and I was like, that's it, I'm getting rid of this. And so I called them, and they cut my bill in half. So I didn't get rid of the service or the subscription, but what it taught me was, look at your bills, look at how much you're spending. And then if it doesn't work, get rid of it, or cut it in half, or find some way, to reduce it. If you are like me and you like to shop, do a month of, no shopping. Maybe even every quarter you do a month of no shopping, no Marshalls, no Home Goods, no Target. That I have found to be really helpful for me. Asking for reduced cost, buying generic, lots of ideas for that. I just want to quickly talk about SMART goals. I know most of you know this, but we're going to do an exercise in 1 minute about setting some very small goals for ourselves. But we want to be specific, measurable. Our goals need to be attainable. So we don't want to say, oh, I'm going to save 3 months worth of money if that is undoable, right? So maybe what you want to do is you want to focus on, saving $20 a month, right? And starting somewhere. Your goals need to be relevant to your life, and they need to be time-bound. So let's go back to our list. And here's what I'd like you to do. On the issue that you circled, answer these questions. Begin to think about, so what could you do? Who could you talk to about this? What might be a couple of options for dealing with this issue? Who could help you? What do you want to ask for? What additional information or education or resources might you need? And we're going to take 2 minutes to do that. Just come up with some ideas, some brainstorm ideas. What's the best that can happen? What could you do specifically about this issue? And let's see what you come up with. Okay, 30 seconds. Okay, great. Okay, super. So now what I want you to do is I want you to take a look at the list and I want of the things that you could possibly do with respect to the one issue that you want to work on. And I want you to circle the smallest task that you could start with. The smallest, simplest, easiest task. And that is where we start. Because we're not going to create a 3-month or a 6-month reserve emergency fund tomorrow. That's not going to happen. We're not going to create a retirement fund, by next week or by next month. However, we could potentially talk to our HR person about the 401k plan at work and learn more about it. And maybe if I'm only putting in 2%, maybe I could add another percent that gets matched, right? Maybe if I have concerns about some additional income, maybe there are things that I could potentially do seasonally. As the spring and summer is coming up, here on the shore, maybe there's something that I could do. What kinds of part-time jobs could I come up with? And something simple to do with respect to that might be just make a list of any job that I think I might be qualified for. That would be a really simple way to start. Maybe you set that as a goal to accomplish by the end of March, just making a list. So what we want to do is we want to start as small as possible. The old adage, rolling stone gathers no moss. Here's what I know. If I start really small and I have success and I accomplish something, it makes me want to go back to the list and pick another item that I can do on the list. And then what happens is that this week I do something, next week I do something, I accomplish 3 or 4 things in April, and the next thing I know, it is coming up on the end of the year and I have done 10 or 15 steps to get me closer to my financial goals. Okay. Thanks for coming, Jane. Nice to have you here. Okay. Couple of last ideas is Kathy's financial recommendations. Again, these are just suggestions. Know where your money is and how much you have. Spend less than you make, right? Everyone's always talked about that. It sounds so simple. And why isn't it as easy as it is simple, right? Pay yourself first. Take money, swipe it out of your account before you ever see it and put it into your retirement or put it into a savings fund so that you never even get to see it. Max out your 401k, make a 13th mortgage payment each year. I know some people who pay their mortgage every other week. And if you pay your mortgage every other week, you make 13 mortgage payments in a year. it'll take about 4 years off of a 30-year mortgage, believe it or not. And it will save you tens of thousands of dollars in interest. I love it. It's such a, how come no one ever tells us this stuff, right? And then if you get extra money, a bonus, a tax refund, a COVID payment from the government, do not spend all of the money. Take at least half of it and put it away somewhere. And then take half of what's left, pay off some bills, and then, you know, spend it, take yourself out to dinner or buy something fun for yourself. So I'm going to ask you to commit to one small thing that you're going to do in the next 2 weeks. You can keep it to yourself, but wanted to commit to one small thing that you're going to do that's going to help you and your relationship with money. And then here's some resources which I'm happy to share with all of you. In fact, we can share this PowerPoint as well. Some great Calculator.net. Write that down, Calculator.net. It will help you figure out any type of calculation having to do with money. What your portfolio might be worth in 10 years, how much interest you're paying on your mortgage, how much a new car might actually cost you with interest if you borrow the money. Calculator.net, love it. There's like 49 different calculators on there. Love that site. Okay. I'm sorry that it is 12:59 and I have just managed to continue talking, but I'm happy to stay online, take your questions, and or follow up individually with people if you would like to. And thanks so much to Lisa and Marvin, the MCE team, and the Women's Center, and giving us an opportunity to talk about us and our money during COVID. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Kathy. Great program.
Yes, thank you so much, Kathy. Lots of great information as always, and I learn something new every time. So I've got lots of notes here, and I'm going to hold myself accountable.
Yeah, so that, right. So that's the key, right? Is like,
exactly.
Who are you going to have hold you accountable? And it could just be, you know, you could do it yourself. I usually like to have an accountability partner, and that I find could be really helpful, even just to check in, right? So, you know, once a month, I'm going to check in with someone. I'm going to tell them what I'm doing with my money. Could be your brother or your dad or your, you know, spouse or whatever. But so awesome.
One thing you mentioned, I know, was about reviewing your bills.
Yeah.
And I know I do that try to do it at least once a year, sometimes sooner, once every 6 months, if I can. It doesn't take long. And I think the template that you're providing will also help with that, because you have everything right there once you plug it in, and not trying to just go through all the different, you know, your little pile of bills. But it does help, because like I'll go through my insurance and then I'll call around to see where I can save money on insurance. And I've saved a couple $100s a month before, you know, switching my phone carrier, save money that way with cable. So all those things. But yeah, please send the template to me so I can share it with everybody.
I will.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that too. That template looks great.
Yes.
Yeah, I will do. Great.
Thank you, Kathy.
All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Kathy.
Have a good weekend. Thanks
Kathy.
again.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
Have a
Take
good
care, everyone.
weekend.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.